We talk a lot about conversion rate optimization, and so that means a lot of things to a lot of people. There are things that have to do with the navigation of your site, the searchability of your site, the organization of your content, and the quality of your content, the functionality at different points in your website. As a web host, we focus a lot on loading speed optimization, where we know that the speed of your site directly correlates to your conversion rates and basically the amount of visitors to the site that wind up making a purchase. It also impacts things like paid advertising campaigns through platforms like Google Ads. And it impacts search engine optimization directly or indirectly, or both. So that's a big deal for us. We come in, we load test, we make sure that time to first byte is really strong. We get the right caching layers and content delivery networks and all this fun tech. Really not just up and running, but we get it fine-tuned with with the developers that are managing these websites, and that's really an important facet, I think, for any e-commerce business today, is to be fast. We're also finding that we want people to keep their eye on the prize for the long haul. So while absolutely people need to do what they need to do to get through these weeks, security is still just as important as it ever was. And if your website falls prey to some kind of vulnerability that's exploited by hackers or something along those lines, it can do a lot of damage to the lifetime value of the customers that you've historically had. It can chase people away. It can have ripple effects of its own. So we're trying to make sure that people are staying in up-to-date versions of whatever software they're running, that they're using some sort of a WAF, a virtual firewall. And at JetRails, we configure these things for users. But in general, these are things that are available that, as much as we love to help everyone, regardless of where you're being hosted, these are things that are going to be important to you. And there are, by most estimates that I'm seeing, somewhere around 100,000 websites still on Magento 1. Magento 1, the original version of the Magento software.
Hey, you.
Yeah.
Get off Magento 1.
Yeah, basically. You got two options there.
The mandatory switch is coming up, right? So they're forcing people very soon.
June of this year, of 2020, is end of life for Magento 1. That means that either you've got to get onto something else, or you should be looking at a solution like Mage 1 that will provide you security patches moving forward. That's outside of following these general best practices, like having some kind of a malware scanner and intrusion detection and a virtual firewall and and other best practices. Basically your password shouldn't be admin123.
Shouldn't be password.
Sorry to tell everybody that. But there are things that should be done in all seriousness that go above and beyond that. Even just auditing once who still has logins to your site. Does that person still need those logins?
Yep.
What we love, a principle called least privileged access. If they don't need access, they shouldn't have it.
Yep.
Including to different even levels of access. Should they have full admin access or something lower?
Or they store admin, but they are an admin with access to these apps and so on and so forth. So
exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all these things come into play. And so we're trying to help make sure that people are navigating that and not just sweeping under the rug that their site is aged. Because at the end of the day, you do have options. It's not an all or nothing. But if you just sit there and let the site stagnate, you stay on in an old server that's not properly maintained with old versions of software like PHP that are going to be vulnerable, things of that nature. You're not doing your business, your employees, your customers, you're not doing anyone a service. And so no different than than other preparations. We're trying to look at these different facets. So, we look at basically everything that's going to relate to stability, to keeping that site consistently up and running, whether there are intermittent errors that are popping up that need to be addressed, or you name it. Whatever's going to get in the way of that shopper, we really want to see people address, because why wouldn't you be doing that?
Of course not. That's what you're leaving most of your money when most of the money you're leaving on the table is upon entrance to your website.
Yeah.
And when you touch on page load speed, page speed insights, for example, and how that in turn affects, what we do over here on the advertising side is that most retailers don't realize how much load time, on-site experience, and security are taken into account by platforms like Google and Microsoft. And for example, you can't even run shopping ads or any kind of real advertising unless you have a secure SSL checkout. They're just not going to let you have it. And it's easy to say those for, again, like the SaaS platforms out there, like like a Shopify, BigCommerce that has a lot of that baked in. But a lot of these mid-enterprise platforms don't. These aren't, in out of the box features necessarily. So you have to kind of find what really works in that, and for each individual snowflake, as you put it.
Our team likes to say that it takes a trifecta. You need a really good development team or developer that's involved in the project. You need a really good web hosting environment that's proactive, that's got your back, and then you need to be active as well. You can't just throw caution to the wind and hope for the best. That you need to invest a little bit of time into making sure that everything is up to snuff, and that's where things work really well together. When you get folks that work well as a team, in essence, almost as if it was all under one roof. In our case, we have evolved through the years to handle everything, as they say, soup to nuts in the web hosting layer, because we realize that for our customers, they don't want to deal with firewalling or malware scanning or
they don't understand
10 other things. That's right. And that's other vendors and other systems to be logging into and monitoring, where we've got a NOC, an operations center. We're running 24/7. We're monitoring 24/7 for uptime and other important things. So why wouldn't we be the ones that are keeping an eye on all those things and watching out for that denial of service attack, or if some bad code got pushed up to the website accidentally by a developer that's causing some errors, or you name it. Oh, things go wrong. And so it's just making sure, whether it's with JetRails or whether it's with others, that you have folks that are watching your back. And that's why, my day-to-day overseeing the partnership programs, a lot of those partners are agencies and developers that we know that we have to work really closely with, because if we're not lockstep with them, that's where headaches can often come in. That we want to make sure that we're scheduling out updates together, that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing. And I don't know if it's the secret sauce. It's not a big secret, right? But that's where good things happen. It's the same way that we have dedicated account managers and check-ins with our clients, so that, for instance, if they're coming up on Magento 1 end of life, they have someone to talk to about what they can do, what their options are, what best practice looks like, all important stuff. And and sometimes it's not all about one thing. And I think that's where it's the nuance that gets people. Like Magento 1 end of life, you have to contend with the security of your website, but you probably also have to contend with PCI compliance and the rules and regulations of securely accepting credit cards.
Yep.
And so, walking those lines, that's what's important. It's about a diversity within the industry. And as I always like to say, it takes a village in e-commerce, between your shipping, your taxes, your payments, your hosting. All these things have to come together.
I was just saying got an opportunity to talk to co-founder Brian, and I was saying the same thing. I kind of poked his brain, picked his brain. What do you think is the secret sauce? And it always came back to the same thing. It came back to people. Because and we've said this for a while, but technology is our passion, but people are our purpose, and it really is. It takes, and I said to him, I said, it doesn't just take. It does take a village, but in my opinion, I think it takes a country. Really, it takes so many unique individuals, talented enough to be able to handle all aspects and all facets of e-commerce businesses like this.
I think that sometimes it's just about understanding, back to value, what makes sense. Is it worth are you going to do a good job of managing all of these things yourself? is your time well spent at that? And what are you going to miss out on? And what's the opportunity cost? So I imagine the same for your team, that, someone could set up some kind of an XML feed, but your team does, things 6 ways from Sunday that help people to, to win more business and to compete in a highly competitive space. And it's different. I think that we look at the market in very much the same way, that for us, it's not that someone can't go and spin up a hosting environment with Amazon's AWS or,
Right.
some random place, but without the proper monitoring and management and maintenance, that's not really going to serve the long-term goals of an e-commerce business.